Hello. Did you, by chance, decide to join me on my crocheting journey with the Orange Blossom tank top? Did you get that downloaded and did you get all the stuff that you need for it? Well, I am here to continue working on that project, and I've got my handy dandy little project bag here. This one is a national parks bag. I just, pick up stuff wherever it is. Doesn't have to be fancy all the time. And as a reminder, we are working on this orange blossom tank top. So last week I just did the chain row and row one because I did a lot of the gauge work and I did a lot of that kind of just getting started stuff that comes when you're starting a brand new project. So today we are gonna, I don't know if you can hear that, but that sounds like thunder. So I'm hoping I can get this recorded before before the rains kick in. Today we're gonna start on row 2, and I'm not gonna read off the pattern because I really do want you to go to the designer's website and get that pattern for yourself. So, so I'm not going to read off each line as we go. We'll just, you'll follow along. We are on row 2, and this is what I am working on. Where am I today? Well, I actually am not going to tell you where I am, but I'm going to tell you where I just was. And that was the Outer Banks in North Carolina. The Outer Banks is, it's a very unique place. It's this long island at the edge of the ocean. So there's a couple of sounds that separate the island from the continental United States, and then the island is there, and that separates the sounds from the Atlantic Ocean. So if you've never been out there, it is a lovely, lovely place to be, and it's also full of a lot of history. There is, it's very famous. In fact, all of North Carolina, their state motto is "First in Flight," because the Wright brothers flew their plane for the first time. Ooh, you know what? I gotta tell you, it is a little hot and muggy today, so my fingers are really sticky, and it's making it a little bit challenging to work on this. But we're going to get through. And I have the sun right at my back. That's okay. I'll get these a little wet, and I think that will help. I'm not going to go all the way back in the RV to get hand lotion, so that's not going to work. Hopefully that works a little. We'll see. So the Wright brothers had manned flight, and that's kind of the distinction there, is that they actually flew the plane with them on it. That's kind of like, before that, there were gliders where, somebody might go up and just glide, but they had no control over the plane or the glider, what it was doing. There were controlled, almost drone-like planes, but they were not manned. So the combination of having control and being on the plane while it was being controlled, that's what they did first. So that's kind of the big to-do there. And there's a fascinating thing. I love history. I know if you've watched me for a while, you know I love history. And I'm just fascinated by history. On this trip, I think I realized that if I had my life to do over again, I would become an interpretive park ranger. So I would work at like one of these national parks that's full of history, and I'd be that guide that gets to talk to and give tours and tell everybody about everything, because I love public speaking and I love history, and I just think that that would be the neatest combination that would really honor my skills and what I love to do in a fascinating way. Unfortunately, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. There is nothing close to me that could even remotely resemble an interpretive park ranger type job. Although there are some interesting like volunteer positions that I could possibly do, or even we have a Pioneer Living History Museum that I might look into, but I don't think that's a paid position to kind of, you know, get dressed up in the old West garb and go out there and kind of tell people about stuff. I don't know. I might look into it further because I think it would be really fun to share history with people that are there to experience the history, to see the history, to learn about the history. Well, what would be your dream job if you could go back and do your life over again? Or, you know, maybe you're doing it now. Maybe you're deciding to do something right now that is different than what you've always done. What is that for you? What's that cool thing that you're like really excited about? Share that with me in the comments. Make this a conversation. Just because I'm recording this and talking to you, it doesn't have to be one-sided. I definitely read the comments. I know there's not a lot of viewers yet. That's totally okay. I do read your comments and I'll respond to them. And maybe if I remember, I'll answer on the air too. Or, well, is this technically on the air? I don't think it's on the air. I'll respond in a video at some point in the future. So we talked about Wright, the Wright brothers. Another fascinating thing about the Wright brothers, something that's not well known, and I do think, I'm not a feminist by any means, but I do think that women have often been overlooked in history. Let's change it. And it can be a subtle change. The park ranger, the interpretive park ranger at the Wright Brothers Museum mentioned, and he was a guy, and I love this, he mentioned the significance of two females in the history of the Wright brothers, which you would not know before because they just weren't talked about. And the first was their mother.
Mother. Of course.
And the reason that she was so significant in the Wright brothers' history is because it was from her that the boys got their math and engineering genius, not from their father. Their father was actually a minister. Their mother had gone to college, and she was top of the class in all her math classes, and she just had the brain for math and engineering. And she shared that with the boys. And in fact, during their testing and designing phases, if they ran into a challenge or they needed to redesign the math formula, it was their mother that would help them out and solve that problem. So without their mother, there would have been no Wright brothers' famous first flights. Now, would there have been flights? For sure. Somebody else would have invented it at some point, but it would not have been their story. So it is really, truly their mother that contributed, even if it was them who had all the fame and fortune from that experience. Now, the other female that played a significant role was their sister. And it was their sister because she was the one who, when they got discouraged and they got frustrated, she was the one who said, keep going. Keep going. Don't give up. This is your life's work. This is something that you guys are going to do. Make it happen. And I love that. I love having a cheerleader. I don't care who it is, you should have a cheerleader in your life. If it's me, by all means, let it be me, because I'm going to cheer you on, girlfriend. I am absolutely going to do that. Now, I have multiple cheerleaders in my life, and they each kind of play a different role at different times. My husband, he's amazing. I love, 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 love my husband. And sometimes he's an amazing cheerleader, but not most of the time. And I'm okay with that. I never used to be. It's kind of interesting. I expected him to be the best cheerleader around. But at some point in my life, I realized I have other people to be my cheerleaders. Why do I have to have him do this for me when he does so many other amazing, wonderful things? Now, I know a lot of you out there would be like, well, you know, he should, yeah, you know, he's not a good man if he's not going to do that. That's not true. It's absolutely 100% not true. He is a good cheerleader in his own way. It's just not the way that I wanted or needed. And I had to recognize that for myself. It's not about changing him. It's about realizing that I can get that from somewhere else and I can be okay with that. He's amazing for the things that I get from him. And he gives me so much more than I ever could ask for. That just doesn't happen to be his strong suit. And I'm okay with that because I have a best friend. I actually have a couple of best friends that are wonderful cheerleaders. And I have family that are amazing cheerleaders. And, you know, so I can get that from other sources. So how many times do you have a significant other in your life and you've held up a project and you've shared it with them and they're like, yay, good for you. I actually got to say, my husband does do pretty good complimenting me on my projects that I'm working on. I'm looking at this right now, and I don't think you can see it very well, but there's a little bit of a hump in a couple of spots. Now, it's not noticeable enough to do over because it's just a little subtle one. So I'm not going to do it over, but what it's telling me, I could totally be wrong on this, but what it's telling me is that I need to be a little bit more careful on my tension. So I'll keep an eye on that while we're going through here and work on my tension a little bit. Is your significant other a good cheerleader for you? If they're not, who is that cheerleader in your life? Who is that go-to person that you can get to just pump you up whenever you need to be pumped up now and then? There's got to be somebody, and if there's not somebody, let's work on that. Let's find somebody for you because I think we all need a good cheerleader. Oh, that breeze feels so, so wonderful. I really wanted to record a video for you from the Outer Banks because the scenery there is absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, most of the time that we were there, it was either blisteringly hot and or freaking windy as all get up. Now, I mean, the Wright brothers did select the Outer Banks specifically because of the wind. So I guess I should have expected that. But there's no way I could have recorded a video and had you guys be able to hear me with the kind of wind that we were experiencing. I mean, it was actually rocking the RV at night, so I couldn't sleep as well as I would have liked to. The Outer Banks is also fascinating to me because it is the area where the Lost Colony of Roanoke is from. Now, if you're not familiar with this story, let me tell you, I first learned about the Lost Colony of Roanoke when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I'm going to date myself here, totally okay with that. My mother used to buy those old Time Life books. They each had a different subject matter, and the one that I was most fascinated with was Mysteries of the Unexplained. And I can still picture the stories in there. I mean, like spontaneous combustion and all of the different coincidences between Lincoln's assassination and John F. Kennedy's assassination. So all kinds of just really crazy, fascinating stories. And one of those stories was the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Now, without going too far down into a rabbit hole, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Lost Colony. This was the very first formal English colony in the United States, and it was located on Roanoke Island in North Carolina. Now, when they arrived in Roanoke Island, they ran aground in the Sound, which is the little body of water between the island and the mainland, and they lost most of the supplies they had brought with them. So they were in dire straits. And in an effort to try and save them, one of the members of the party decided to return to England to restock the supplies, because they didn't know how to hunt, they didn't know how to fish, they didn't know how to sustain their life in the Americas without the supplies that they had planned on bringing with them. Unfortunately, when this gentleman, John Wright, returned to England, it was right at the time that the Spanish Armada was about to attack England and try and take it over and make it its own. So the Queen of England said, absolutely no ships will be returning to America. None. Because they need them all for the war effort. So John Wright, whose daughter and brand new granddaughter, the very first English person born in America, were stuck in Roanoke, North Carolina, without any supplies and without him able to return to them. So they're kind of, I mean, can you imagine the anxiety that he must have been going through, knowing that his daughter and granddaughter and son-in-law were over there and they didn't have what they needed to take care of themselves. The Native Americans didn't have enough to provide for all of the colonists that were over there. Finally, after 3 long years in Europe, he was able to return to Roanoke Island. And when he got back to the colony, all of the people were gone. You know what? I kind of feel like that scene from Dirty Dancing, this one.
It was missing.
Yeah, hysterical. They were all gone, and there was no sign of them. There was no burial grounds, there were no bodies, there was no indication that war or violence or illness or anything had happened to these people. The only thing that was any indication were 2 areas. One was a post from the original colony. All of the buildings had been torn down, disassembled, but one of the fence posts had the word Croatoan carved into it. And one of the trees nearby had the word CRO carved into it. Now, everybody assumes that that was an indication that the colonists joined one of the tribes, the Algonquin tribe, in Croatoan, which was located near Cape Hatteras area of the Outer Banks. But when they went there, there was no evidence to be found of these individuals. Nowhere. To this day, nobody knows what happened to those people. I think that is so freaking crazy. I just love that kind of a good mystery. All right, we finished row 2 here, and I am going to do one more row. This is actually, I'm supposed to do this until there are 15 total rows. So I have to keep count. I'm really, really, really bad at keeping count. What's the hardest thing in crochet for you to do? This to me, I can't keep count. It's, I don't know, my brain has just never been a math brain, which is actually kind of an interesting thing why I love crochet, because I think it actually challenges me in a mathematical way. So I'm always kind of looking at that and saying, okay, what's one of my weaknesses? How can I work to improve it? And I really think, oh, this mess. I really think that that's kind of a side benefit of crochet. And we're spending some more time in North Carolina. We have a lot of time in North Carolina. And then we're starting to make our way home. And I'm not sure I'm excited yet about that. I mean, it's been hot. It really has been hot out here. But it's really hot in Phoenix too. So the one thing is I can kind of get back to a routine, and I do like a routine. I like to know this is how my day flows, and it's generally going to be kind of the same most of the time. But I also love experimenting and doing new things and going out and exploring. So I'm kind of an enigma in that way. There are so many ways I'm an enigma. An enigma. Yeah, that. But I love that about me. I'm just going to be okay with it because it's who I am, and I think I'm kind of a great person, if I do say so myself. So, tell me, what are you working on right now? Oh yeah, I almost forgot to tell you. I am so excited, and I'll be revealing this on. I'm going to share it on the July audit, which is still a ways away, but I found a yarn store in the Outer Banks, and I bought this absolutely stunning Outer Banks sunset inspired colorway in a sport weight, which I love the sport weight, and I love the fingering, and I love the DK. Anything up to a DK. Worsted and above just doesn't work for me in Arizona too much. I mean, I use it for certain projects, but as far as like garments and even blankets, it gets to be too heavy and bulky, and I'm just not a fan. So I really prefer the lighter weight yarns. And this is absolutely gorgeous. And I'm really excited about coming up with some ideas. I have a couple of ideas for patterns, but I'm still kind of exploring because I only got one skein, and it was really expensive. It has cashmere in it, and it was like $38 for one skein. Obscenely expensive, but I kind of look at it as it was a souvenir. As much as it was a yarn stash, it was a souvenir. And if I can make something that will allow me to look at it all the time and think of being on the Outer Banks, totally worth it. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, because I think it's starting to sprinkle. I'm going to finish off this row, and I'm probably going to do a couple more before we meet next time, since this part of the project is actually going to, I've got to do 15 rows, and it's pretty repetitive. So we'll meet next time. I would challenge you, if you're following along with this, to get started and get at least maybe the first 15 rows, which if you read the pattern, it doesn't actually say 15 rows. It just says row 2, repeat until you have 15 rows. So get that far, and then next week we'll do the next step together, and we'll see how we go. Thank you so much, and I gotta run because it's starting to rain. Bye-bye.